They should really think about treating that business as a living entity, even like a child. There's really only one thing that causes a business to fail. It's running out of cash. The secret is that the real opportunity and the real problems lie at the intersection of these things. We're in a world where beyond buying trust. Think about that idea, concept of buying trust.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur's Logbook podcast. I'm your host, Zachary. You can find me on social at @ItZachB. In each episode, I bring on experts from various industries for you to learn about their strategies and insights driving extreme business growth. Today, we're joined by Aaron Tellier, entrepreneur and CMO at the Volute Group, a marketing consultancy that helps business leaders maximize their marketing investment and build customer experience that actually move the needle. Aaron is actually a Naval Academy graduate, 2 tours in the Persian Gulf, CRM leadership at Merrill, Lynch, and the Bank of America, and then he made a pivot into the entrepreneurship world where he co-founded a craft brewery and a group of climbing and fitness facilities in North Colorado that grew to 2,000 members into 7 figures. But he's also advised 75 CMOs, which some of those are actually Fortune 500, and he's got a book coming out, and he's also ran 10 marathons and climb Mount Kilimanjaro, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I've honestly no idea how he does it, but that's Aaron here, and welcome to the show. It's great to have you aboard here.
Thank you. I'm tired just listening to all those things that I've been busy doing.
Yeah, you've had a busy career, to put it very simply here. But no, I appreciate you jumping on the show. I think it's going to be an amazing, great conversation. A lot to obviously learn and take from your experience across the world here. But one of the things I always like to ask any guest that comes on the show, because it is a business entrepreneurship podcast, you've been around across the block and the globe too. But if you had to restart your entrepreneurship journey from scratch, is there one thing that you feel maybe you would do differently that a lot of people get totally wrong?
That's a great question. So I'll start by saying, there's lots of reasons that people start companies.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a mission that they're on, or, it's just a way to make money. But at some level, you want the company to eventually take care of you, right? So you want that thing to deliver its mission. You want it to pay for your kid's college or your retirement or whatever it is. And so when people start businesses, they should really think about treating that business as a living entity, even like a child. You really need to nurture the business. You need to feed it, you need to cultivate it, and you need to do that in a very purposeful way. And what I find is that entrepreneurs, when they get started, they don't really think of it that way. They think it's just a thing. It's an entity. But if you start treating it like a living entity, then all of a sudden you start wanting to nurture it. You want to do the things that are going to give you that long-term success. And you do that, sometimes to your own detriment. You work long hours, you give up things to start businesses. But the way I think about it is if you had a child, you don't take food off your child's plate. You want to make sure that the kid is going to eventually grow up, maybe take care of you, right? Maybe. It's the same with the businesses. And I see a lot of entrepreneurs, they're not thinking about the long term. They're underinvesting in their business, and they're kind of cutting corners, and the business suffers, and the business isn't able to take care of them. And the last thing I would say is, there's an old phrase, cash is king. And there's really only one thing that causes a business to fail. It's running out of cash. As long as you have, money to pay the bills, the thing can keep going. And so you got to put those profits away. You got to invest in the business and make sure the business is healthy and producing enough return to sustain you both in the short term and the long term.
That is probably one of the most original answers that I've gone, to be honest with you. I'm not making that up. I've heard a lot of different answers, but I feel a lot of people, it's typically maybe I wish I would have hired this certain person. I would have done this faster. But treating your business as a living human being. I mean, I know like some people say like my business is like my baby, but
Yeah.
they don't always fully internalize that or like act like it. And I feel like the way you're saying it is like treat it like your actual baby, like nurture it, provide for it, make sure it's healthy, it's happy, and everything like that. And that's an interesting one.
Oh,
It's an
thanks.
interesting perspective.
Well,
And I
when
would
we
like,
meet, there are 4 partners in the Volute Group, and when we meet,
yeah,
we often refer to Volute as another person. Well, how's Volute gonna feel about this? What's gonna be the
yeah,
impact on Volute of this decision that we're making, apart from the impact on ourselves? And
yeah.
it also helps to kind of orient the group
Hmm.
toward the group goal, not the
Yeah.
individual goals.
I love that. And touching a little bit onto like the Volute, because you build businesses in consulting, hospitality, fitness, and you basically spent years inside like these really like large enterprise managing massive teams and P&L. But I'd really be curious because that's very different from like the entrepreneurship side of things. And I'd love to understand how has like moving between those like come to you? Like what does that actually look like? Like how does that change the way that you think about marketing, leadership in a way that someone who's only maybe just done one of those things? Because you see like a lot of consultant, they're focused on this one thing. That's the only thing that they do. But you've been like this part of the map, this part of the map, like basically you know Monopoly. Like you basically like
Yeah.
you went through Go a couple times, to put it simply.
Nice. Thanks. I appreciate that. Now, I did it because I just love new experiences.
Yeah.
I like doing something, putting your heart and soul into it, and then moving on and doing something else. Life is short,
Hmm.
and if you do the same thing for your whole life, then you've only got that one thing. But if you move
Yeah.
between, you've accumulated, and all you really have at any moment in time is your memories, right? And so
Yeah.
I have a rich set of memories. But getting to your core question, what have I learned? Here's the thing. A lot of people look at corporate and they go, corporate is bad, and all the things,
Yeah.
bureaucracy and all that. And then they look at small business and they go, oh, small business is hard, like you're literally on your own. Um, but both businesses have merits. You know, Big businesses, they they need that bureaucracy because the way I like to say it is yesterday, that
Hmm.
company that's a big business made $1 billion.
Yeah.
Well, they don't want to screw that up. They want to make $1 billion or more tomorrow. And so the bureaucracy is in place to manage that. And so that has value for that organization. But if you're a small business, that's not going to work. You got to be fast, you got to be nimble, but it's also hard because you don't have the resources to draw upon. You didn't make $1 billion yesterday. You got to figure out, how am I even going to make ends meet tomorrow? And really trying to blend the both of these things
Yeah.
is what I love doing it. I love taking the lessons from corporate, the
Hmm.
structure, the process, organizational thinking, that a lot of times we take that for granted.
Yeah.
Being in corporate, you think, that's just bureaucracy.
Yeah.
But no, those are actual skills that can be applied at small business. And
Hmm.
then vice versa, you as a large business, you have to think, how do I act? How do I act nimbly like a small business would? How can I adapt? Because as you are well aware, and I'm sure your listeners are well aware, it is a fast changing market. And
Oh
if
yeah.
you are not adapting right now, you're gonna get left behind. So it's really that blend.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people are gonna maybe like put down like the corporate side of things. Like, oh, like I just want to like run my own business. I don't want to like have a job or anything like that. But I feel I'm big on like the motto that like everything happens for like a reason. And I have a feeling you probably would agree with that too. But I feel like it's going through these different experiences as you talked about that will help to influence how you act and operate on a certain level. And being able to have so many different perspective, you're able to bring a more diverse or educated approach to like the work that you're doing as opposed to being just like narrowed down like, oh, this is how you do things versus all these different things you can do.
Well, there is something to be said for like actually having your hands on the keyboard or actually speaking to the customers, because that
Yeah.
it really grounds you in the reality of business. And so when I talk to CMOs, I'm able to bring that boots on the ground perspective, but yet I've spent 25 years as one of them,
Yeah.
understanding, the world that they're living in and how decisions get made at that level.
Yeah, because I find it like very interesting. Like there's the enterprise side of things, which obviously you've been around that for like a while, but there's also like fitness facilities and like climbing gym, like craft breweries, which I think is like pretty like unique, which is like a very different. And the one thing that kind of interests me though is you're doing both at like the same time. Where like some
Mm.
people they're gonna come from the corporate world, they're gonna start their company, and then that's like what they're doing. But you're bringing like these different perspective at the same time, so you can always bring like new perspective, things that you're seeing to the other business, and it can influence in like a positive way, which I don't feel like a lot of people can do. But I'd be curious, like, do you see that as like an advantage, being able to have like those multi-threaded perspective? I guess maybe that's the word.
Absolutely. There's a lot of tunnel vision that happens,
Oh yeah.
especially in large organizations, and it's not a malicious thing.
Yeah.
It's not a it doesn't even necessarily have to be a negative thing, but it's just by the very nature of a large organization, you need to break tasks and responsibilities up into very small components. And so your perspective on the world narrows. And
Mhm.
I just heard this the other day, and it's kind of apropos to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It was a Simon Sinek. I love Simon Sinek. I don't know if
Yeah.
you ever listen to his stuff, but he's always really smart. And he talked about when the new CEO of Ford took over,
Mhm.
and he drove a Lexus to work, and everybody was like, "Whoa, what
That's
is
a war
happening
crime.
right now?" And they go, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Well, it's a better car." And they're like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you're saying that." And he goes, "Here's the thing, guys. What are you all driving? When's the last time you got in a different vehicle and looked around
Yeah.
and to see where things were going and what the competitors were doing?" And they were like, "Well, never, because we wouldn't do that." So
Yeah.
he went out and he bought a fleet of cars from other manufacturers and made his executives drive them. Now, why? It's this question of perspective, right? You want to
Hmm.
broaden that perspective. And when you're
Yeah.
working in marketing for climbing gyms, or I've got a space equipment company that I work for, or a wealth management company,
Yeah.
that ability to just kind of think outside of the box, your brain is trained to do that because you have so many different things going on.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of people are going to be stuck on like one idea that this is how you need to do things. Again, like tunnel vision, as you said, like, hey, it's like only thing that I'm seeing on my rearview mirror. But if you look at different things outside, it's like, oh, this is actually pretty good. Maybe we should take some ideas from that. But I love that fourth story. That's a pretty good one. Pretty uncommon, but probably got the point across pretty well here. And just like switching gears a little bit, because I know we talked about the different ventures that you had, but right now I know one of the things that you do is the Volute Group that you currently operate with, like your partners here. I'd love to understand if you could walk through, like, when a business leader comes to you guys, what does that process actually look like? How do you guys actually help them figure out what's really holding them back for their growth? Because I feel
Mm.
there's obviously a lot of different things that could be the cause of that here.
Yeah, for sure. Well, if I could just, I want to say something about the Volute Group and
Of course.
why we started it. Yeah, it's a business and it'll do all the things that I want business to do. But at this point in my career, I'm really on a mission, and
Yeah.
it's a mission to do business better. And I've got lots of great examples to draw from, both good and bad. And so, when I was looking at when I left my big agency job, I really tried to take a perspective on the market for advice and marketing strategy in particular, and
Yeah.
say, how is that really playing out for folks today? And three words or phrases kept coming up over and over in my mind, that these agencies and consultancies, they're over promising, like,
Hmm.
oh man, we can do this and this is going to be amazing, and it's not backed up by very much. And
Yeah.
then they're on to delivering. So that's not good, because then the gap gets even larger. And then to make it worse, and it's not their fault. They just have large cost structures that they've got to tend to.
Hmm.
And so they're overcharging.
Yeah.
And so where does this leave the customer? It leaves the customer in a really tough spot, and they don't like to change agencies.
Mm.
It's like inviting somebody into your house. When
Yeah.
you invite them in, you don't know if they're going to be respectful. And a lot of people are out there they're just selling, selling, selling.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with selling. It's a natural thing that we do, and it's an essential part of business. But when we think about it as Volute, we think about it as serving.
Hmm.
And I know it sounds maybe a little bit a little silly of a concept to serve, but when we talk to our clients, it's just about offering different perspective
Yeah.
while also respecting the realities that these leaders are dealing with every day. We know how hard it is to be inside these organizations, and
Hmm.
so we say, "Look, we're not going to be your vendor. We're going to be your partner. We're going to
Mm.
be in this to solve problems with you." And again, that sounds like a positioning statement, but it's
Sure.
an attitude, and the
Yeah.
attitude totally comes across when you're meeting with somebody. And so when we talk to folks, the whole thing is like, what are you really trying to do here? What's
Yeah.
your real problem? And then let's just have a conversation about what have you done? What have you thought of? Here's
Hmm.
some ideas that we can try. Let's spend some dedicated time thinking about how to solve this problem.
Yeah.
And that's basically where everything starts. It's just a conversation.
Yeah. And one thing, like leading back to like what you were talking about, like finding like the problem, etc. Something that I find pretty often is there's like business owners, founders, etc. They're convinced that they have this specific problem, whether it's a bad ad, they don't have enough leads, it's a weak website, when the real issue is oftentimes something completely different underneath. And I feel like you have to like shift like the belief of like someone. It's like, no, like you don't have that issue. You have this issue.
Yep.
And
Yep.
maybe getting over that belief can be a little bit hard, but I'd be curious to hear like how you even navigate these conversations. Like how do you help someone like zoom out and like reframe like what they're trying to like solve in the first place?
Zach, that is super important. And so the way that we think about it, I see this, all the time. It's again, it's offering that perspective. And the way you do that is not by talking. It's like the same reason you go to a therapist, right? The therapist
Yeah.
doesn't tell you what to do. They ask you a bunch of questions. And so it's the same way in business consulting. So have you ever heard of a technique called laddering?
I have not, fortunately.
Yeah. So laddering is this idea of just continuing to ask the question, well, why?
Okay.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure you've done that yourself. But here's an example of that kind of conversation. Oh, hey, Aaron, we need a CDP here, customer data platform, because we don't have one and everybody's getting one.
Why?
Okay, well, that because everyone has one, I don't know, that's the reason to get one. So
Yeah.
why do you want that?
Mhm.
Well, from everything I've read, it's just going to give us better data.
Yeah.
Better data sounds good to me, right? That's who can argue against better. But why? Why do you want better data?
Yeah.
Well, it's because we want to personalize the experience. Oh, so you want to personalize the experience. All right. So now let's talk about that. What are you trying to personalize? Like where are you going with that? And if you just keep asking that question, why?
Mhm.
Why? You eventually get to some larger business problem.
Yeah.
And here's the secret, and I really think this is a secret, is that problems very rarely, especially in mature organizations, live inside a single capability or a single function, because
Mhm.
if it did, that problem had been solved already.
Yeah.
Because good leaders know that's a problem. I'm gonna get rid of that thing, or I'm gonna add
Mhm.
that thing. But the secret is that the real opportunity and the real problems lie at the intersection of
Yeah.
these things, at the intersection of capabilities, at the intersection of corporate functions, at the intersection of organizations. And there's only one way to get at those problems. That's
Yeah.
to zoom out and to see them holistically.
Yeah.
So, when I get a single problem, we just kind of step
Dissect it.
back, how to
Yeah.
get to that perspective, and it can be hard. It can be
Oh
hard.
yeah. Yeah, you have to like dissect the problem and get to like
Yeah.
the core motivation. Like why do you want to do this? And I feel like any problem that someone has, most of the time you have the answer right in front of you. It's usually the simplest answer, but you always sort of complicate your life and everything that you see. You're like, no, this is the problem. We need to fix that. And then it's like, no, if you just did this specifically, 90% of your problem would be gone. And I forgot who said this, but it's like 80% of like business is just like hearing again things that you already know and just applying them. And I feel like a lot of people don't understand that. They just overcomplicate their life in a way. But
for sure. I mean, it's the old adage, if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
And touching on to like a point that you mentioned though, because then like you mentioned like data, like, oh, we want better data. Like it's like the shiny object syndrome. Like, oh, everyone is jumping onto this wagon. Let's do like the same thing. That brings me to like one question, which I really want to hear your perspective is AI. Obviously, everyone is talking about it. Everyone is like, oh, there's like these new cool, insane AI agent. Like we need to be doing this. And I fell in that trap myself where like I've started building stuff. I'm like, this is really cool. Like this is going to be a game changer. And then I built it, took a good amount of hours, and like, I'm not even using this enough. Like this is not worth it. Like I didn't make like the analysis of like the ROI based on the time that I spent and what it's going to give me back. And I feel a lot of people just jump ahead too fast. And obviously AI top of mind, a lot of business leaders right now, they're seeing it everywhere, but there's really a gap between how most companies think about it versus what it's actually like doing to change the way that their customers make decision. Where do you see most organization getting that wrong, and where and what should they be paying attention to that they probably are not?
Oh man. So if there's like a theme for this podcast, it's going to be perspective. And when I think about AI, when I go back in history, there wasn't computers when I was growing up. We had this we had see and says. I don't know if anybody remembers what those things are, but those were so cool. And my first computer was a TI 99-4A, which most people don't even know. Okay. This was predecessor to the Commodore 64, which was the powerhouse with 64 kilobytes of memory. Oh my gosh, what I would have done with that. I had a tape drive and all this sort of thing. So I'm dating myself, but I'm also offering perspective, right? So at every evolution of computers, it was just like, oh my gosh, this is going to change everything.
Yeah.
And the truth is, it did change everything. But it's just the way I think about AI, it's just another tool. It's just another layer of abstraction. You're just moving further away from the core problem. And I mean, don't get me wrong, AI tools are incredibly powerful, and where they could go, nobody knows. Tons of prognostication about that. So, I want to start by grounding in the idea that AI is really just another tool that's come into our toolbox these days. And if you're a hammer and everything looks like a nail, it's like, well, if you're walking around with your AI tools, you want AI everything, and that's not always the right solution. And so, that's kind of like my strategic perspective on it. Don't start with, oh man, I heard this podcast on Claude agents, and like go back to your team and go, hey, how can we use Claude agents? No, that's the wrong question. The right question is, hey guys, I saw this podcast on agents, and man, there's a lot of powerful things that could be done. What are the things that are happening in our business which has sort of bogging down our time? It's just reframing the question, and then you can zoom out and get a better answer. So that's a strategic perspective, but I want to give you and your listeners a very tactical perspective from a marketing standpoint, but it has big strategic implications, and that's this idea of SEO, AEO, GEO, and man, I cannot be in a conversation with business leaders where they're not going, what are we doing? How are we showing up in GEO? And I want to know what our results in chat. And one of my business partners, Shiv Gupta, is doing a lot of thinking about this, and he's got a great way to think about it. Yeah. Are there tactical things that you need to do to show up in AI solutions? 100%. There are, but he's taken it a step further, and I love the idea. He said, we're in a world where we're beyond buying trust.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that idea, concept of buying trust.
Yeah.
What are branding advertisements other than buying trust, right? You're saying, look at us, we're trustworthy. Look at us,
Yeah.
our product is great. Trust us, try us, that sort of thing. And so, yeah, fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
There's a place for branding in the
Yeah.
world, but now people just go, hey, what bank should I'm frustrated with my old bank. I want to try a new bank. What are they going to do? They're not going to sit around watching television, waiting for all the banking commercials and decide based on the banking commercials.
Yeah.
Is that going to influence their thinking?
Yeah.
100%. But that's not the end. So in what has to happen is, and nobody likes this answer, but it's the truth. It has to be the customer experience.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to create a customer experience that people are talking about, that is putting out trust signals into the marketplace in a much broader way than when you go out and buy trust through
Yeah.
advertising. And so, this idea of GEO, it's just a way bigger
Mm-hmm.
conversation than that. And I think that's exemplary of how we need to think about AI differently. But that's how we think about it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it goes back to like what we talked in the beginning, where you have to like zoom out, same concepts. Like, okay, where are we going to apply this? How is it actually going to be helpful? How is it going to be impactful to your customers? And sometimes you're just going to come to the conclusion like, hey, it's really not worth the effort. Like we don't need to spend the time,
Yep.
money, capital doing this, and maybe just save you a bit of time. So I think it's like an important exercise that you should be doing anytime before you do a big decision or initiative. First thing that you should be asking yourself, I mean, not asking yourself, but doing, zoom out. Then
For sure.
consider everything, consequences, what pros, cons, and then make the decision. But maybe don't jump the gun on just because you saw a podcast on Claude and all these fun agents there.
You're joking about it, but I had a conversation with a CMO, Fortune 500 organization,
Yeah.
who told me that's exactly what happened. The CFO of the organization went and told one component of it. They said,
Yeah.
"Hey, I need you to save, all these millions of dollars. Use AI to do it." Okay, thanks. But this is what CMOs and CFOs and boardrooms are kind of consumed with today. And you're absolutely right. If you don't zoom out, man, you're going to get the wrong answer. You're going to waste a lot of time and money. And if you have the right perspective, I think you can get a lot further ahead.
Love that. Well, one of the things, just like parting thoughts here, and one of the things I always like to ask, like for anyone that's listening, maybe they are a business owner, founder, they are obviously trying to grow the business. Is there maybe 2-3 pieces of advice that you would leave them with, whether it's tactical or it's just something like, hey, maybe you should be doing this if you're trying to like grow the business, improve your marketing, or anything like that? Anything that comes to mind there?
Yeah, well, I think as I think across my businesses, whether it's the climbing gym or the brewery or my agency consulting businesses, there's people, right? So it's always people, and the time that you spend with your people is totally worth it. 'Cause could you do it yourself? You probably could. That's why you're leading the business, right? That's why you're in charge, because you proved that you can do that. But you can't scale your business if you're trying to do it all yourself. So
Yeah.
you've got to train your people, you've got to invest in your people. And it sounds so cliche, but if you really enjoy, people and seeing them succeed, I mean, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's so rewarding to challenge someone on your team and to see them succeed. Or, a lot of times I'll give people challenges that I know they're going to have a hard time with, but but you put those guardrails on, and you say, hey, I'm going to ask you to try this thing. It might be difficult, but give it your best try.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you a pass here. Okay. No matter what happens, it's going to be okay. And if you need my help, give me a call.
Yeah.
And so while there's tons of advice I could give, I think invest in your people, care about your people, and empower your people. And you're going to find that your day is going to be filled with enjoyable conversations, and it'll just make your life a lot better.
Yeah. It's pretty refreshing since a lot of the advice people give nowadays, like, hey, use AI, like find all these new tools, everything. But it's like, no, like invest in your people, like the actual humans that are making these AI tools work in the first place, and the rest of the wheels in motion here. But no, I really appreciate you coming on the show. And if anyone wants to get in touch with you, to like, hey, Aaron sounds like a cool guy, I want to reach out, how should they go about doing that?
Well, two good ways to reach out to me. One, hit me up on LinkedIn. You're gonna find me real easy because there's only two Aaron Telliers on LinkedIn, and I'm not the engineer. I'm the marketing guy, so
Okay.
that's a easy way to find me. Or you can go to our website, thevolute.group.com, and there's a
Sure.
little button that says "Start a Conversation," and that'll take you actually right to my calendar, and you can
Yeah.
book a meeting with me directly on my calendar. And as you can tell, Zach, I love to talk. So if anybody wants to talk, I'm more than happy to.
Perfect. Well, great. You heard that, everyone. Head over to thevolutgroup.com if you want to learn more. To your listeners, if you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, like, review, all that fun stuff. Reach out to, obviously, Aaron here. And then, yeah, until then, keep pushing, and we'll see you in the next one.